Hi, welcome to our channel Good New. Would China and Russia be as close as they are now if the US had not exist? This is a pretty intriguing subject. To debate the Sino-Russian bilateral connection in the current international geopolitical context is to discuss the Sino-US-Russian trilateral relationship. Because of the current state of these ties, the United States is the primary external driving power. On a historical scale, there is little doubt that the United States and Russia have the greatest competing interests in this trilateral relationship. However, as the United States and Russia's interests diverge and the United States gains an increasing edge over Russia, the relationship between the two countries is changing from complexity to simplicity. That is, the US has become a unilateral perpetrator of Russia, and it is ready to see Russia repeat the mistakes of the Soviet Union as quickly as possible. In terms of US-China ties, the two nations have a long history together. However, unlike its dealings with the Soviet Union and Russia, the United States has long had a strong position in this relationship, making the US more ready to assume that it can shift the situation in its favor unilaterally. As a result of the deepening of Sino-US exchanges, the US-China relationship has exhibited a trend of transformation from simplicity to complexity, but this complexity primarily contains negative meanings that are detrimental to China, so the US has once again become a unilateral perpetrator of bilateral relations. Whatever force it meets, the United States has demonstrated a persistent position of unyielding confrontation. Regardless of how the associated interests alter, the United States is aiming to be the greatest winner unilaterally. This is referred to as US hegemony. In terms of external reasons in Sino-Russian relations, the selfish international hegemon, the United States, is the most influential force. The existing strong connection between China and Russia is supported to a significant part by the United States. But does this suggest that China and Russia's present cooperative relationship is only a transitory alliance under foreign pressure? Will China and Russia swiftly split if external pressure from the United States ceases? My response is that this is not correct. Why is this the case? That, and much more, is exactly what we will discuss today. Please keep an eye out. In addition to the external influence of the United States, endogenous demand drives Sino-Russian ties. What exactly is endogenous motivation? In other words, from the standpoint of pursuing their own interests, China and Russia must rely on each other's existence from the start. This is especially visible in economic and industrial progress. For example, China aggressively pushes economic growth mode transition, whereas Russia sees reindustrialization, innovative development, Far East development, and modern agriculture as critical pillars to achieving the objective of attaining the top 5 in the world economy by 2020. China now has the world's second biggest economy, and it needs to leverage Russia's massive market to further solidify its position. Russia confronts several problems in the conventional natural gas export market, and China's massive market demand will allow enough room for Russia's natural gas export strategy to be adjusted. And does any of this collaboration have anything to do with US foreign pressure? No. Absolutely not. Even if the US leaves, China and Russia will continue to cooperate extensively and deeply in these areas. Even without the United States meddling, this type of collaboration will be smoother. This is referred to as the Sino-Russian relationship's endogenous driving force. So, how do the Chinese perceive Sino-Russian relations? Is Russia China's favorite country? Let's go through it in greater depth. The Global Times conducted an annual public opinion poll on the topic Chinese view of the world. It presented to the globe China's thoughts and attitudes toward other nations from the standpoint of the Chinese people. Based on the poll findings, we may divide it into 3 categories. To begin with, when asked to choose the bilateral relationship that has the biggest influence on China, more than 55.6% of respondents picked the China-Russia connection, placing first. Most of us, I suppose, are not shocked by this outcome. China-US ties have been ranked number 1 for the previous 15 years. However, more than half of Chinese people now feel that Sino-Russian relations are more vital. I believe everyone is aware of the rationale for this. For a long time, China and Russia have maintained a highly amicable relationship, demonstrating a high level of collaboration in diplomacy, economy, scientific research, and military, as well as a high level of strategic mutual confidence. More crucially, the Russian side can always provide China with unwavering assistance on Hong Kong and Xinjiang problems at critical junctures. China-Russia ties will undoubtedly be well regarded by the Chinese people. Second, public expectations in China for Sino-US and Sino-Japanese ties have declined dramatically. According to the results, 41.8% of respondents felt that Sino-US ties are extremely essential. Only 18.2% of respondents are enthusiastic about Sino-Japanese ties, which is considerably lower than the number of respondents who are optimistic about Sino-Russian relations. According to some analysts, while Sino-US ties remain vital, this survey indicates that the Chinese people are becoming bored of the U.S. The United States' performance in several sectors has been exceedingly poor, particularly in the last year. The United States' anti-China actions are much more repulsive. The poor performances of several American and Western politicians, in particular, have revealed their genuine and evil intents, producing widespread displeasure among the Chinese people. More data reveal that more than 65.5% of respondents no longer approve of the disingenuous language of the United States' touted democracy, freedom, and human rights. Third, contrary to past expectations, this year's surveys show a big gain in Chinese favorability for Singapore. Apart from China, the most popular 3 most liked countries are Singapore, Germany, France, Russia, the United States, Maldives, Switzerland, and New Zealand, in that order. Singapore's voting rate is far greater than that of other Southeast Asian countries, and even higher than that of the United States, which has never happened before. According to experts, this might be because Singapore's stance toward China has shifted in recent years. Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has often stated that he will not take sides between China and the United States, but will instead maintain an impartial and neutral stance. It is also envisaged that the Chinese people will recognize such a calm and sensible attitude. Overall, we can see from this survey that China is steadily growing stronger, which is also increasing the nation's self-confidence. In the past, the Chinese perceived the United States and the West to be powerful, hence Sino-US ties were crucial. People stand up on a psychological level as economic strength increases. Now that China is stronger, it pays greater attention to friendly countries like Russia and Singapore. As a result, it is natural for the Chinese people to have a good opinion of these 2 countries. And the Chinese are no longer oblivious to the United States, Japan, Australia, Lithuania, and other nations that are opposed to China. Thanks for having your watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.